Welcome to Horror Movies and Beyond, a show about reviewing horror movies for the living to understand the dead. Today, I'm here with producer and content creator Chauncey K. Robinson, and we are going to review a sci-fi alien invasion cult classic from 1986, Invaders from Mars. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, this movie.
You know it's going to be good when you start this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a remake from a 1953 version, black and white, of course, directed by William Carmen Menzies. But the 86 version was directed by Tobe Hooper.
That's my Hopper? Boy.
Yeah. Hooper.
Tobe Hooper.
Hooper. Okay, we'll go with Hooper.
I think it's Hooper.
We'll find out later when someone corrects us.
I know. They do that a lot.
I know. And he directed Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 and 2 and wrote many of the others. Funhouse, Poltergeist, Night Terrors, and the TV show Freddy Nightmares. I don't know if you ever seen any of those.
I saw one clip of that and I didn't understand the concept. I was like, what is he, the Crypt Keeper? Like, what's going on? But I love Hooper. I love Tobe.
Invaders from Mars 86 is about a boy who stopped aliens who have taken over his town and attempting to brainwash people to make them do things and stuff like that. So I don't know, what was your impression like when you first watched it? Like,
well, this is the thing. When we first talked about doing it, I didn't know Tobe Hooper did it. And so I was pleasantly surprised. But then I was like, oh, is this going to be like gory and stuff? Because, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Funhouse and all that. And then when the opening credits started to come up and I got a little like, I can't stand that circle font, that half circle font thing, because I can never read it. I'm like that Ryan Gosling SNL skit with Papyrus. Like, I am that with that kind of text. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the first and last names are not spaced out. I think when it first started, I was like, okay, this is going to be semi-epic. I guess I'm so used to nowadays with horror movies where everything's a little bit more intimate and quiet and it all takes place in the kitchen and there's an unmarried couple who's having problems or something and then murder, and this is just like grandioso 80s style, which is my favorite kind. So yeah, when I first kind of saw the aspect of it, I was like, hey, this looks pretty cool. We can, some cool tones to it.
You're so funny.
Oh, thanks.
Before we begin, where the story came from, which was similar to what the movie is about. Instead of a little boy, waking up and having this nightmare, the writer of the original, John Tucker Battle, his wife woke up in the middle of the night and had a terrifying dream that some aliens came down and started taking over. So he wrote that story from that, but instead of this lady screaming for her life, put a young kid.
David Gardner, I'm gonna get you, David. That was like,
that lady was scary. That teacher,
she did a great job. She was like the standout character to me.
Yeah, her name was Louise Fletcher. She played the grandmother in Flowers in the Attic, if you ever seen.
Oh, that makes sense. She had a type that she played.
And Nurse Ratchet from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Really? So, the one with Jack Nicholson?
Yep.
Wow.
That was her. That was a young her, because that was 1975.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, she could play those cold-hearted roles pretty good. And even as a teacher, I wouldn't want to be in that classroom.
I had a teacher in kindergarten who, back in the day where they could take you out and hit you with the ruler.
You know how many times I've been smacked? Wow. Shut up.
I saw a meme today where one of my friends from high school was like, I don't know if these kids today are soft or if I was just abused. Like, I don't know the difference. And so when I saw her character, I'm like, yo, teacher like that. But now you look at it and you're like, they shouldn't teach like this. Like, this was wrong how she taught this classroom. That's a little aside. The education system.
It was a lot of trauma. Like, I was triggered. I was very triggered. So we meet David Gardner. He is hanging out with his dad, looking at some shooting stars. He ends up going to bed, and he noticed some weird sounds, and you see this ship coming down. He screamed for his parents. He goes check, and they're like, "Oh, I don't see anything. We'll check it out." Sure. So his dad goes check it out. His dad comes back all weird, missing a shoe. Decided to eat some cereal with some Tic Tacs. Some coffee with some Tic Tacs.
Yeah, coffee with Tic Tacs. And as someone who's an avid coffee drinker, that was probably the grossest part of the movie for me. I was like, I feel like he probably did it. I would like to know the background of that. Like, was it Tic Tacs, or was it something that looked like Tic Tacs, or did they have him really do the Tic Tacs and the coffee? Because that looked so gross.
We probably will never know. but it was gross. So right then and there, we understand something's wrong with the dad, and David is looking at him like, giving him the side eye. Did you know the nurse is David's, his real name is Hunter. That's his real life mother.
Really? Yes. I did not realize
Karen
that.
Black is his real life mother. And
okay.
And you could definitely see the differences watching this as a kid, as an adult, because even when I was looking, I was like, there is something about that relationship that was way too, she was way too motherly, even though she was a nurse, but then it was this real life mom. And I was like, oh, wow, that was probably really cool at that time. My mom is Karen Black.
Yeah, I did look up her career. You know what's so funny? When I looked her up, I didn't even make the connection. I saw that she had children, but I didn't see that he was one of them. And she was part of like New Hollywood, like this extensive decades of a career, and that was really cool. And you could definitely see that they had a lot of good chemistry in the movie. So that would make sense, considering their two characters had to spend so much time together. So yeah, I think that worked out. And you know what's so funny is that in the beginning of the movie, because the mother was redhead and the father was dark haired, I'm like, whose son is this? Like, who cheated? Because I was like, he is bright blonde. So it makes sense that you say that now. Because I'm like, it makes sense. That was his mom, the blonde in the movie, the real mom.
Who cheated? I'm never going to look at this movie the same.
I noticed the most random stuff. I just
no, but that makes sense. It's like, I don't know if you mixed dark hair and red hair together, would it make blonde?
I don't think it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. That's why it stood out to me. I'm like, how is he that bright blonde unless his mom's not really a redhead? That's the only way to explain that.
Now, this is interesting. The cop because she called the two cops, they came over. One of them is Jimmy Hunt, who played David McLeon or something like that. He was the actual little boy in the original 1953 that would play David. Yeah.
That's a great connection.
Because if you remember, he went over the hill to go check. He was like, oh, I haven't been up here since I was a little kid.
Oh, that's so cool. Look at Tobe with his little inside quirks in there.
First of all, I wouldn't have went back, even if I was a cop. So what do you think how the aliens control them? They seem like robots, and this thing that they put in the back of their head.
That was definitely something I was trying to figure out as the movie went on, because what was interesting to me, I thought initially that it was kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen like Animorphs or read the Animorphs series,
yes.
where there's like a slug that like goes in their ear, and like it's literally one of the aliens now controlling the person. And initially I thought that's what it was, that it was one of the aliens now inside of the human. But as it went on, especially when there was that kill switch thing with the two guys, I was like, oh, this seems to be more of a mechanical thing where it's literally controlling them, not necessarily an alien inside of them. So it seemed like there was a technology to like connect to their neurological pattern or something to make them do their bidding in a way. Which kind of works. I mean, there's some moments where it's like, okay, I feel like they're more so acting like they're an alien inside a human rather than a robot. But then other times it was like, no, they're like being held against their will and control. Yeah.
And they also start to eat weird foods. Like obviously the dad and the coffee and the Tic Tacs, but then the mom, she had some ground beef and some salt. And she rolled it up and ate it. I was like,
yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. That's strange. So
that's what threw me off. And that's why I was like, I was thrown off by that. Cause I was like, okay, so the food thing made me think it was an alien, like that they're like Invasion of the Body Snatchers kind of thing. Like there's an alien now taking over the body. But then, you know, like I said, when there's that whole thing with the kill switch later on, I'm like, oh, so they're not aliens inside there. Because how else do you explain the food? Like, why would they need the food like that?
Maybe it scrambles their brains to where they can't process what they used to be. So maybe they're just, I don't know. It's just weird to see someone eating weird food. Even the teacher, you know, when David followed her and she was in there tearing up the frog, but she didn't even like spit it out or snatch it out. She was like, let me finish. Let me finish my snack.
She just like gargled it down.
Yeah. And when I was a kid,
weird, right?
Yeah. And when I was a kid, when I saw that scared me. Because it was such a random thing that she's like scarfing this down. And then she's chasing him down, and then here comes the nurse trying to protect. Now there's some other interesting things about this film that I really do like, is that it parallels to the original story. Like when you're watching it, it's almost as if it's cut and paste, but better. And so I think if you're going to make a remake, keep it as a remake and then make it your own. It's his style, and the kid is the savior. Far as like you have this whole military thing going on in the first one, because in the early 50s, it was all about the military. Where this one, it is the military, but it's like close to the end.
That's where it really seems to rev up with all the action, and it definitely focuses more heavily on the kid as the kind of the one seeing everything, which I did think was good. And you can tell he's like Tobe really put his own kind of spin on it. You know, it kind of reminds me of, like I was mentioning, the Invasion of the Body Snatcher movies, where each one of those, depending on what year they came out, had a different context of what the aliens represented and a whole different setting at times. So it definitely, I think it being in the 80s definitely influenced the style of it as well, in terms of just a little bit more of the cheesiness factor in certain things, and some of the references.
And Stan Winston helped on this, and his son Matt helped on this film. If you notice the tunnel, when David follows the teacher into the tunnel kind of have similarities to the tunnels in Aliens that came out in 1986. So he was working on both films at the same time.
Makes sense, yeah.
How did he not, like, oops, you know, this is invaders, not aliens, and he accidentally put a xenomorph.
Yeah, I mean, it had wonderful practical effects, but I didn't see anything that felt like, oh, that's an alien reference. If anything, especially with the big brain, I felt like it was like that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. What's the Arnold Schwarzenegger? Where he goes to Mars. Is it
Total Recall? Yeah.
Which is one of my fave movies. And it's just like, so he goes to Mars and there's this guy that has like, that he pulls up and it's like a second person that speaks and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what that brain reminded me of. And I was like, it had wonderful practical effects. And then the aliens reminded me pretty much of the Little Shop of Horrors plant, but with legs.
And
right? Like, that's what
yeah. And you know, I hope I read this right. They only used 2.
Oh, so that was the same 2 throughout
2
the
monsters. Whole? Yeah,
wow.
And they just cut it in a way that it looks like it's multiple. From what I read, I hope I read that right.
That's pretty smart though, because they looked intriguing. Were they? Do you know if they were like puppets, or were they like full-fledged like people in suits?
There were people in suits. There were 2 of them. It was one big person who for the legs, and then there was a little person that they would put on the back that would control the mouth and the arms. And he designed it that way that it looks like there isn't really anybody in there. Because even when you're looking dead on, it's hard to tell where a person begins and where they end.
Yeah.
That was the whole idea, especially budget reasons. They were tight on money, and they just use only 2.
That's great.
2, yeah.
They did a great job.
They sure did. And Steven Spielberg was in talks to direct this.
Oh, another one?
You know what? I think he used Tobe as his, as his way into horror without being into it. Because he also did Poltergeist, and it was also that rumor Steven Spielberg was around, but didn't want to.
He did the second unit.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, that's why I said again, like, oh my gosh, like, can you back off of Tobe? Like, let him do his movies. You know, like with Poltergeist, that whole controversy, right? Like, who really directed what? And in a way, what's so funny, because I did kind of feel like in the beginning of the movie where you had this idyllic family and the whole thing of they're really like, they're kind of chill with each other, they love each other and stuff. It did remind me of Poltergeist, where there's a very much, even though the Poltergeist family is one of my favorite horror families because they're just so funny and stuff together, and not necessarily like wholesome, but like wholesome in their way, right? And I did kind of get the same vibe where they were trying to do this wonder kind of thing. So I can see how you definitely see that influence there with Tobe. And honestly, I think Tobe directed most of Poltergeist. I think when you look at the way it came out and things like that, I definitely think, you know, Spielberg had some influence probably like in the final, and you know, him saying that him and his friends wrote it and all this other stuff. But eventually he does give Tobe his credit. So, but I definitely saw, now you say it, like I definitely saw some similarities with the beginning of the whole idyllic family kind of vibe.
You know, I wish Steven Spielberg would just do horror movies, because it seemed like he goes through other people. I mean, since Jaws, he kind of just like hiding behind certain directors to do his movies.
No, I feel like Jaws is one of my fave ever. I have like this huge poster of Jaws I'm looking at right now. And it's like, I feel like, you know what's interesting about Steven? Because I know I threw shade because of Tobe, but I actually really do love Spielberg as a like a filmmaker. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's great.
And I think what his thing is that he's one of those people who, it's never really an overt genre. It's a Spielberg movie, right? Like like what is it? Something of the fourth kind, the alien thing, E.T., all of that. Like those are, for all intents and purposes, you can say, oh, that's sci-fi, that's horror, but there's so many other different elements in his movies at times that you can't really hunker him down to one specific genre. And I do feel on some level when it comes to horror movies, especially in the horror community, sometimes there's this idea and there's always this debate, is this really horror because they had this in it? And it's like, I feel like he'd just be very frustrated because he'd be like, does it have to have a label? Like, can't this just be a movie? Like, and us, the horror community, it's kind of like, this is horror or it's not. Like, I remember Beau Was Afraid. There was a whole debate. So it's, yeah. So I can see why he wouldn't overtly go to it. But I agree. I feel like his horror films the ones that are closer to horror have been so great. But once again, if you look at some of the elements like Jaws, even Poltergeist, which he wrote and stuff, it's horror, but it's not the kind of horror, the stereotypical horror that people associate with it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
The ground when it twirled, the twirling sand of death.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really cool when we get to see what happened to some of the people, because, they go back there and we don't, what happened to them. And then they come back all weird. And then you see this thing sliding under and then pulling people down. I wonder how they did that, because it looked like they were really being pulled down in some sand. I don't know. But back then they didn't really have like regulations on safety as much as they do now.
That's true. There were a lot of instances where I wondered, I was like, is this like life size, or did they do like stop motion, like the gate and stuff like that, where it's kind of like puppeteer type things to make it look like it's big, but it's actually a small type thing. Now, the thing with the humans spinning around, I mean, there was probably some practical effects, but like you said, it's like probably not the safest thing to put them probably on some type of platform where they're spinning, trying to get their grip or whatnot. So, but yeah, I thought that was really cool. It kind of reminded me of Dune, or Dune reminds me of that. One of the things we joked about when I was watching it was when I keep referring to the brain, but when that brain comes out of that thing, it looks like that Dune cup everyone was making jokes about. Like from the theater, when they tell you don't let the men go in there with it. Like that's what that thing came out of. And then the sand was like the Dune snake. I feel like maybe they watched this movie.
Did you get one of those cups?
No.
Oh.
Did you? Oh, I mean,
no, but there was a side of TikTok that someone had one of those cups and he was looking at it and he was like, and then it was looking at him and he was looking at it.
Oh, geez.
And then he started sweating and I was like, wait a minute.
It's a TikTok where someone did a thing where they're like, you work at the concession stand and a guy comes and buys that cup, but he's not going to see Dune. And it's like that Lady Gaga cut out singing, oh no, oh no, oh no. Like, because like, what are you going in there with that cup for if you're not going to see Dune? I don't know why they thought that
somebody was a freak who made that.
Yeah. And I was just like, that is not appealing.
Definitely not. But then you discovered how they made those ridges on the wall. A giant screw was twirling through the school when David decided to Linda, the nurse, decided to find shelter at the school after the teacher was chasing them down and everybody else is looking for them and stuff like that. And you see this giant screw that goes up. So basically it just screws through the ground for whatever reason, different places and stuff like that. But then finally David just went to the military base. Oh, I need to see the general. And they just let him on in. Like the safety is not safety going on. Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was good because in a way they had, I knew they were not hinting, but they were like
Oh, his
referencing where
dad.
the dad worked.
Yeah,
So I was
that's
like, the
right.
dad's
Yeah.
connected to it because he's like so and so's son. What does he want? And it's like, okay, he lets him through. So it was like they kind of had to make that connection because some random little boy being like, I have to talk to the general. It's like, come on, seriously. And I love that they actually eventually. I mean, that was my guy from Poltergeist, the boss from Poltergeist. So I was like, Toby's using his actors,
Yeah.
And it was funny because he really like came to believe him, which was good, because I did get a little frustrated in the movie because it was kind of like one of those things where it almost seems insurmountable, where it's like this little boy is seeing this stuff. If he explains this to anyone, no one's gonna believe him. So where is the hope? So I love that there was this hope that he could go to these guys and they would, like, with, trial and error, being able to figure out, like, oh, wait a minute, he's on to something, and that was good, because I was a little tired of it, like, he can't tell nobody nothing, because I'm like, where are we going with this film,
Exactly. I mean, it a little bit was skeptical that they were like, let's call in those was it those researchers or something that got sucked down that we saw to see, talk to them, and they seemed to appear normal. If you remember when they were about to say something, but then they got zapped to death by the back of their heads. So there is a point where they can be normal, or they can't be, or something like that. I don't know.
That's why it was interesting to me, because it seemed like you said, it seemed like one of the guys was about to tell the truth. So that's where I had started to be like, well, maybe they're not an alien taking over. Maybe it's it's a gadget, not an actual alien that's getting put inside of them, because it looked like when they were about to tell the truth, one of the Martians or whatever did a kill switch and basically made it so that both men died, so they couldn't tell the truth. But it was also kind of like, how did they know they were talking to the general? There was a lot of things kind of left open to interpretation. I'm like, are they sensing when they're talking to people and everything? Like, do they have hive mind? Why the kill switch for them and not David's parents? It was a little all over the place for the convenience of the movie. So
but it also makes it very plausible why they landed behind David's house, because of the dad. The dad had a way to get into, because he did like some kind of I forgot what his job was, but he did something that was very important to the way that he was able to put bombs on that truck to stop the rocket or spaceship, because they were going to go dig under Mars because they couldn't find anything on the surface, and that's where and obviously that's where they live, is underground. So it was like, okay, we're going to stop them, we need the dad to do this. And it was like, once they felt like the military wasn't safe, okay, let's just get everybody, and they use real life military personnel.
Really? I love that. They're real life Marines.
Some of them awesome. Were real life Marines, and I guess they had the day off. It was like, hey, you want to be in a movie? And then they just went down there, and it like you said, it went pretty fast from there. It was like, okay, we're gonna get there. Let's get all the military we could find, the trucks, and we're going to go blow them away. I mean, it was no discussion. There was no plan.
It became very action oriented right there, because up to that point it had been like the kid going in different places, weird people with stuff on the back of their neck, to this full-blown action movie of them going guns blazing into the Martian thing. And I love that line that the general gives David, where he's like, don't worry, David, Marines have no problem killing Martians. And I was like, I know that's right, I guess. I was like, I don't know what, that's badass.
And they're in there running for their lives, trying to stop the two minions, because there's only two, but it looks like there's like hundreds of them. And then they realize what they were doing. They needed copper, and that kind of powers their ship, powers that eye weapon thing, and which is like which is like the whole thing was fun because they were just trying to figure out where they were, and then you get the one scientist that's trying to make contact.
I gave him some credit. You know, I was like, you know, this is his research all his life. And can you, like, I feel like in real life, I would hope, I honestly just think the aliens are avoiding us because we're crap in the sense of like, like what we've done to Earth. We're like, you know, Earth is like the ghetto of the solar system.
That is
like,
terrible. We're Section 8.
Like they roll up the windows when they're like driving by our freaking planet. They're like, no, honey, just hold it till we get home to planet Zeno or whatever, right? And I honestly, it's true, man. Like, you know, so I honestly, my honest hope is that I do believe maybe there's some, you know, whether it's parallel universe or whatever, you would hope that they're nice or that they're far ahead enough that even if they don't want to make contact with us, they're not like bloodthirsty and stuff like that. So, you know, the idea that the aliens in this movie are kind of like, no, we don't like you guys and we're gonna stop you before you get to us, and on top of that we want to kill y'all, like that's fearful, right? Because that's their whole thing. They're like, yeah, we understand what you're saying, we don't care, like we want to kill you. And to me that's fearful because I've never, you know, even in horror subgenres, I've never really been that afraid of the alien aspect. That's never really been a thing because I've just always thought, you know, hopefully they're advanced enough. But the idea, the first alien movie that I ever felt was like the scariest, but it was because they were hostile with signs.
Ooh,
and I was like, this is terrifying.
That is terrifying.
Like, this is terrifying, this movie. And so I do think there's something where the scientist is kind of like, I've been doing this research all my life because I want to reach out to other life forms. But there's that idea of what you reach out to may not want to talk back. And I think that's the fear right there, you know? Yeah,
there was no talking. It was just blasting, disintegrate there in front of everybody. And they're just like, oh, just took it out.
I thought the worst part was just like, not worse isn't good. It was just like, he was like, they can understand me and they still kill him. And I'm like, wow, they've got to be really on some like, F you guys. It's not, oh, there's a miscommunication. You don't really want to hurt us or invade Mars. It's, oh, we know what you're trying to do. We don't care.
Yeah.
And it's like, could you imagine if we, like a species like that, we're done for.
I hope not. I hope, you know what? If it's a, you know, I have to say this, if it's a good alien species, I'm out of here. I am taking my cats and I'm packing and I'm done paying rent, bills, dealing with the crap here on this planet. This planet is done. It's done. It has reached its expiration date.
I mean, it's just one thing after another with this planet, and it's all, you know, it's in a way it's self-inflicted. I think it's not so much that it's like, oh, you know, things are just happening, evolution, but it's literally like the things that this planet deals with is self-inflicted by the human race. It's just like, you gotta hope that if there's advanced beings or parallel beings that not even necessarily that they're necessarily peaceful, but that they're kind of beyond it by this point, where they're like, y'all that war, y'all still do that? Like, you know, like that kind of vibe, you know, even if they're throwing shade at us, you know, I just hope. But like this movie, they looked like they were on some primitive, like just like us. And I'm like, that's the worst. Can you imagine meeting an alien race that's just like us? We're done for. We're just gonna kill each other. I bet you we never go to the meetings. We never show up. It's like, oh,
we probably really do have the meetings.
And it'd just be like, like Earth ain't showing up today. They never show up. They don't even like participate. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's exactly how it is. I have no doubt. You know, they probably made contact. They ain't telling us nothing.
I'm ashamed to call this planet a home now. I'm from planet Earth.
Parts, but, right? It's like you don't even want to admit. Like, actually, I didn't think I was dropped off. Maybe I'm really this, you know.
I hope so. I'm ready to go. Do you hear me out there, aliens? Tap into this and just, I'm ready to go. As long as there's no probing, you don't eat me like on the Twilight Zone one. Just,
I actually have a box of that. I actually have the box plaything, like recipes of man or whatever, really? Based off of the thing. And I thought that was really cool. Little tidbits.
Okay. So at this point, Linda, she's about to get a thing in her neck. The teacher gets eaten. They just ate her right on up.
David did not mind. He was like, no. Yes. Oh, I'm like, what is the tone of this film? And then the aliens were laughing about eating her. I'm like, they cold-blooded. They don't even care.
I know. I thought she was there to help. I mean, she seemed like she was kind of the leader. Even then, she was bossy. They were like, she's too much. The brain was like, no, thank you. Just take her on out.
Well, they kind of established that even before she was taken over, she was kind of crappy. Because if you see inside of her van, as an animal lover, there were way too many taxidermies there to be natural. And I'm like, there's a cat in here. I'm like, so she was effed up before she got, so that makes sense, So I wasn't shedding any tears for her dying. I was like, she kind of deserves that.
They swallowed her whole.
They did.
Yeah.
That's what it really reminded me of, Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, that's right.
Out and like, this is Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh yeah, and they're supposed to make a remake of that too.
Yeah, I know it's been on Broadway for a bit, so
yeah,
that's
cool. A movie remake. So I'm like, how and why, but we just gonna have to wait and see. But that's a whole nother conversation. And but yeah, so now they're at this point, they figured things out. They shot up the brain. They shot up everything. They're ready to go. The brain was like, I'm done. I'm out. The ship is finna leave. But did you see how David was running?
Yeah, there were a lot of moments in the movie where I was just like, this kid is useless. Just like, he is useless. Like, he's our hero. Like, the kids from the Goonies would never. Like, you know what I mean? They were like inventive and smart. And even from the gate, I'm like, this kind of the low tier. Because, I'm not a big fan of kids in horror movies sometimes because they make stupid decisions. But there are some movies where they're actually pretty good. And and usually the 80s movies are usually good. I feel like it was the 90s and later where they made kids just
Well, this is 86. You don't think David was good? You don't think David could he have been one of the Goonies? Could he have been one of the Goonies?
He would have been low. He would have been low tier. They would have been like, David don't got no good ideas, because in the beginning, he's presented to you as smart, right? Like his dad, like he's really into the stars. So when it came to them talking to the general, he came up with some really great ideas. But then they were pretty much, I felt like, go back on that because he just randomly run. And I get it. He loves his parents and things like that. But there were certain things, like when he was watching his dad take his mom over the hill, I'm like, he waits until she gets, Mom! And I'm like, you should have ran out and like did something so she would have to come back and take care of you. Why are you watching your mother go over into this thing? And I get it. He's a kid. But I'm just saying, the bar is very high because we saw the kids from the original Tim Curry, Pennywise, we've seen the Goonies kids, we see the kids from the Gate. They do it. You know what I mean? Where there was never been I had to think about it. I was like, there was never a moment in any of those movies where I was like, this kid is useless. And this movie, there were a few times where I'm like, he's useless. I was like, he's making all the wrong decisions. And it's kind of weird that he's the heroine of this film. I mean, he did good. The actor was great and believable. That's probably why I was so annoyed with him. I was just like, he's so good at being a kid. Where they just make dumb decisions, Oh,
poor David. Well, he ends up saving I don't even know if he ends up saving. Well, he kind of did. He had that one penny had Yeah, and he used to blast to help get them out of
that
there.
would have got them out. Yes,
Yeah,
and
so
I was wondering when that penny was going to come into, because I was like, this penny was mentioned for a reason, right? So, and then like when he was sleeping, they took the pennies. So like they were very much into stuff like that. So I'm glad the penny came back around. So he remembered that. That was when I was like, okay, he's got some. But then he goes back for his parents. But I get it. If it was my parents, I'd probably run back for him too. I would. But I'm just like,
would I run back? Well, it depends. If I'm on punishment? Were they abusive or neglectful? I don't know. Maybe I would have just
all of those things influence it, of course. Where you're just like, bye, Linda will take care of me.
I know, right?
But also it's just kind of like, how would he know they were even underground? That was the other thing. He was like, he randomly runs into the sand and he's like, I gotta go. I'm like, you don't even know if they're under there.
Or or if they survive. He just
I was like, you don't know any of that. So he puts Linda in danger. So there was just a lot of things he was doing where I'm like, I don't know.
Well, it looks like a fun ride. They were just like, got sucked in. I guess the sand knocks you out because they both woke up next to those minion things or whatever. So once the ship decided, okay, we got to get the hell out of here, those things in the back of the neck of the parents, they, malfunction. They came to, and it just seemed like, okay, everything's normal. Mm-hmm. Like after that, they're back at home. So how long was he dreaming? Because dreams only last like 15 minutes.
I know. So it was very much the whole movie was a dream. And that's like an hour and a half, very detailed stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah. And then he hears some weird noises and he's sitting in his bed like, what's that? He look outside, the ship is coming down. And he's like, oh, hell no. He runs to his parents. He opens the door and he just screams. But if you listen, you could hear, it sounded like those minions, those Martian minions.
That maybe they got into the room because they never show you what he was responding to. And I thought that was okay. I was just kind of like, I would have rather, because I did read that the first movie, I should say, ended with the young kid seeing them again in the window and being like, gee whiz. Preferred not the gee whiz, but maybe like y'all, like a Grand Theft Auto meme. Oh shit, here we go again. Like, you know what I mean? Like he sees something and it's like, what? And then it ends. Because the idea that he runs to his parents and they're already, I'm like, they wouldn't have done that though, would they? Like, I don't know. I just felt like it went an extra minute longer than it needed to. I think they could have ended it the same way that the first movie ended it, which was him just seeing it and being like, what? Like maybe, because if you do it that way, it makes it seem like he had a premonition. Like his dream was a premonition of what could possibly happen, which I feel like the other movie kind of plays into, like maybe it was a premonition and now he sees that. But if you do it so that he sees it and then he goes to his parents, it kind of pulls a Nightmare on Elm Street where it's like it was all happening, but how did it all happen? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would the aliens have put him back in bed and all of that just to do, like, they wouldn't have done that. It would have made more sense to leave it off like it was a premonition and kind of leave it open to, well, now he knows what could happen. Let's see if he protect, a chance.
I'm confused as hell now. But I did look it up to see what someone says, like their thoughts on the ending explained, and it was saying I was
when
curious.
He opened that door, it meant he opened the door. That's how those ending explained videos usually are, right? It's like hella obvious.
So it says, in the 1986 film Invaders from Mars, David wakes up in his bedroom after an alien ship explodes. And his parents tell him to go, it was all a dream. However, David then sees the same alien ship appear and runs to his parents' room screaming in horror as to what he sees. The ending can be interpreted literally as the aliens are coming, allegorically as life doesn't have a happy ending.
Well, what?
That didn't explain nothing, but
No.
at least it got you thinking, I guess.
Life doesn't have a happy ending. I feel like that person that person was in a mood when they wrote that ending. Let's just be real, because that's real heavy.
Yeah, ending. wait. This is going to be funny. It wasn't a person who wrote that.
Was it AI? Shit.
Yes.
Are they?
It was AI.
Oh man.
But then when I went on Reddit and all that stuff, they kind of said it that way, but not that way, but I was just curious. I just screenshotted the AI overview. I was like, what does AI think? Even they couldn't figure it out.
I mean, like I said, I feel like they could have left it with him seeing it in the window, and I would have felt like, oh, that was a premonition dream, and now he has a chance. That way it leaves a little bit of hope, because it's like he had a dream that pretty much told him everything that was going to go down. Maybe he can prevent it if his parents listen to him, versus, oh, he goes in the room and the aliens are already there, which is a little bit more bleak. And I don't know. I tend to not care for nihilistic endings.
What would have been? Would have been a better, would have made sense if he woke up and heard some weird sounds.
Yes.
Looked out the window, but he already see the lights coming from the ground.
Yes.
But we don't see the ship go down. He just sees these weird lights and this weird noise. And then he screams, goes to his parents. That means they already been there and got to his parents, and they're coming for him. I mean, that would have
made sense for why he was scared in the bedroom. Because if they just landed, they wouldn't have gotten to his parents yet.
Yeah, that was. I mean, unless they're the Flash.
Yeah, that's why it was confusing. I was like, so what happened? This doesn't make any sense based off of the linear thing of the, it was a whole thing before when they landed. His dad had to go over there, but somehow they landed and went straight into his room. It was a little. It didn't stick the landing for me.
Literally.
Yes.
So, lastly, I'm gonna ask, how do you feel if they made this a remake? Do you think they could pull off a better ending?
I definitely feel like they could pull off a better ending. The ending we just explained, leave it up to him just looking out the window. You haven't got to change that. I would worry. It would depend. Would it be taking place in our time, or would they be doing a remake since everyone does it, but it's in the 80s still?
That's a good question. I think I should do it now.
But then
if they did it now, we wouldn't care, because remember the whole alien's supposed to be here now, and no one cared. Do you remember that was supposed to be going on last year, and was still going? People say, "Do we still have to pay taxes? Do we still have to go to?"
Yeah, because we were just so over it. I don't know. It could work. I mean, I think a lot of things would be different, right? Because when you do things in our time, technology has changed, right? So it's and he'd be able to go on forums of people talking about it. He probably wouldn't even talk to his school nurse. He'd probably go to his local UFO get-together club or something, and they'd believe him, and then they'd be looking for it. So funny enough, he might actually get more help in this time, because so many people are more open to the idea of it. So I feel like it would be a different dynamic of a movie.
Yeah, you're right. Especially with technology now, we got phones, cell phones and stuff.
Yeah, he would have been like, "Yo, what's this?"
Yeah.
Let me show you.
You know what? It definitely couldn't be. It'd be a horror comedy. Because this wasn't labeled as a comedy, even though there were some parts that was like, okay, that's a little funny. Yeah, so it'd definitely be a horror comedy, and I don't know. Some of this stuff would be on TikTok, Instagram. Yeah.
They play it going viral. I mean, the whole idea of the stuff on the neck would have became really obvious. Somebody would have been doing a TikTok challenge. How to find out if you've got something on your back of your neck. Something I know. Like that.
Or you have some people putting things in the back of their damn neck.
So that they could be like, this is how you make it so they don't want to take you. You already look like you have one in the back of your neck. And yeah, it would definitely have been like some idiosyncrasy type movie where it's like everyone's just dumb when it comes to the aliens coming.
That, you know, or they would make the government would try to get the aliens to like get jobs and fund their campaigns.
Yeah. If they were as like Warhawk as the ones in this 80s movie, we might have more of a full out war, kind of like Independence Day in a way. It would be interesting how they would go about designing them, for sure. I feel like it would be an interesting concept, but I don't know, I feel like we as a society are so desensitized at this point that it's hard to tell stories like this. You know, I think that's why a lot of the stories now, a lot of the newer movies that come out, they always take place before our time, because I feel like when movies take place in this time, you kind of have to tell a whole different kind of story. And you're not allowed to tell it as straight as, you know, when there was less technology, people were a little bit more like discerning, things like that. So I feel like it could be done. I'd be interested. I just don't think people will respond to it well.
But I want to say thank you, Chauncey. This was so fun.
Yeah.
And I love your take on how your perspective of this movie is so cool. Like I learned a little bit about myself. I can't explain it, but I did. I was like, you know what? Just say it. Just say how you feel. And you said how you felt, and I absolutely loved it.
Thank you. So Two things about me: I don't have a poker face, and I usually don't have filter when I talk about stuff. So,
well, that lets me know never go gambling with you.
You will, because I'll be like. My friends always say, my friends literally mimic my side eye. They're like, "Oh, it's the Chauncey side eye." Judging you.
So make sure. So I do have an actual VHS.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I have so many, but I never use it. But this is the actual one from 1986. It's not it's an original one. So look at that. That's so cool.
Oh, I love that.
So this is like, isn't this like an ancient?
Yeah. You know, VCRs cost so much now. When you want to buy a new VCR, they cost a lot.
I went on to, because I have so many, I was like, oh, let me just go buy one.
Right.
On
you
Amazon.
Think it's gonna be chill.
I was about 100. Okay. Man, I saw one for $600.
Yes. I was like, why is a VCR this expensive?
They were $600 when they first came out.
That's crazy.
Darn, I waited too long, but all well. So make sure you guys check it out. I know we've talked about it and maybe did some spoilers a little too much, but you have to see it. It's so fun. Make sure you watch the 1953 version. Watch them back to back. It's a lot of fun. So thank you once again, Chauncey K. Robinson, for coming on here talking about Invaders from Mars.
Thanks for having me.
If you don't mind telling people where they could find your work.
Yeah, well, I'm Chauncey K. Robinson, and you can find me on Instagram under Miss Chauncey K. You can also find me on Twitter making random thoughts on Chauncey KR. That's my real no filter on there, just talking about random stuff. And I do have a YouTube channel, and it's under Chauncey K. Robinson there as well. And also, I have a series that premiered this year, Production Tales from Hell, on the Dead Meat channel, episodes 1 through 5, and, season 2 sometime in the future. So check that out.
Yes, check that out. It's very good. But once again, thank you, everybody. Make sure you like, subscribe, and don't forget to leave a comment and share this too. I appreciate it. And make sure you follow Chauncey. I will put her stuff down below. So until next time, everyone. Bye.